which is this, we need to run 3 tests, right? Notice that all these parameters here, these 3 of them, have primes on them. Okay? And the reason is because when we run these tests, we apply our stress, we wait for consolidation to end, therefore we put a prime here to denote that this stress is being carried by the particles, and then we push the top to create the failure surface while we monitor the deformation and the force. That's called the shearing stage. The shearing stage begins when we start pushing the top of the specimen in this case. Okay? Now, the shearing stage needs to be conducted slowly. So that when the load is being imposed on the specimen, on the soil, no excess pore pressures emerge. So the excess pore pressures during shear must be kept low or equal to 0. And the way we do that is by ensuring that the test is conducted very slowly, so that any increment of stress imposed on the soil will be carried by the grains. And if the water carries some of it, as excess pore pressure, it will dissipate fast compared to how slow, let's say, we are pushing. Okay, so we perform this test very, very slowly to keep the shearing stage in drained conditions. Drained conditions, which means that the excess pore pressure at any point in here during the test, during shearing, is 0. In this case, we know that the particles are doing all the work of resistance, and therefore that's why when we do all this procedure here for the 3 tests, right? That's why when we do all this, we can assign primes, prime, 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 prime to all the parameters. Okay? Now, sometimes we are concerned with the strength of the soil in undrained conditions. We want to know the strength of the soil when inside the soil we have excess pore pressures. The undrained case. This case here is the drained case. This is called the drained strength envelope. Okay, so all this stuff that we've been doing so far for strength has been drained. This is all drained. Drained analysis, drained strength envelope, drained conditions, no excess pore pressures during shear or shearing stage. Now we would like to know what is the undrained strength, SU, meaning we want to know what is the strength of the soil when it has inside it excess pore pressures. So what we do is the following. We apply a stress, we wait for consolidation to end, therefore we can place a prime, right? In this case, conditions that are drained exist, right? Not in this case, but at this point, right? So let me rephrase that. You place your specimen in the shear box for the direct shear test. Right? You apply a stress with a weight. You let the specimen consolidate so that the excess pore pressures go to 0. Then you apply a prime on the term to denote that the particles are carrying that stress. And then the shearing stage is conducted quickly. So that excess pore pressures, if they emerge, they remain in the specimen. These are called undrained conditions. So during the shearing stage, even though you consolidated the specimen and it was in drain conditions before shearing, when you start pushing here and causing the shearing stage or performing the shearing stage, you do so quickly, you push quickly so that any increment of load is carried somehow by the excess pore pressures, by the water, and by the grains. Okay? So in this case, when you're shearing, there are excess pore pressures in here during shearing. So when you plot your data, this is for a given effective stress that you imposed, right? You get a curve like this, tau. This is T over A, right? T over H, same thing. The only difference is that when you perform the shearing stage, you do so quickly so that the excess pore pressures appear and remain inside. The strength of the soil, which is extracted here, is the undrained strength, undrained critical state strength of the soil. Okay? Again, why undrained? Because when you run the test to perform or to gather this data here, you did so quickly. That means the shearing stage. You did so quickly so that the excess pore pressures during shear would not be zero. There would be something, okay? Some value. These are undrained conditions. So the strength that the soil exhibits is an undrained strength. The strength that the soil exhibits over here, when you run the test slowly, is a drained strength. So we could put little d's here. Okay, and over here, drained. We don't really have to, because the equation itself, writing the equation out like this with the primes, implies that you have done a drained set of tests or a drained analysis. Look, okay. The undrained strength is simply a value. Okay, so there's no need to run 3 tests. There's only a need to run 1 test, provided that you know what stress you would want to get the strength for. Okay? So once you run the test, you know what this value is. Let's say you run this test with 20 kPa and you got here, I don't know, 35 kPa. At this moment you are done. That's it. Now if you were to conduct another test, okay, and with that test on the same soil, and you were to load it with 40 kPa, you would get, if you were to consolidate it to 40 kPa, right? So 40 kPa, you would probably get a larger strength. You will get a larger strength, maybe without a peak, something like that. Okay? And the strength would be larger. So generally, when the undrained strength is asked for, so somebody asks you, hey, what's the undrained strength of your soil? Then you say, well, my undrained strength is 40 kPa. And the person may say, oh, 40 kPa, so what did you consolidate that soil to? And then you say, oh, well, 26 kPa. I ran the test with 26 kPa as the effective stress, initial. And then I ran the shearing stage quickly, and I got a strength of, what did I say, 40 kPa. Okay, great. You know, so there is no relationship line or anything like that. All you provide is a value of undrained strength. It's the value. So drained strength parameters, phi prime, C prime. Undrained strength, SU. That's it.